Living my bucolic life, free, healthy city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and sew and spin, and move the horses into the barn. Then time to move them out again. Red barns, green pastures, beautiful white houses. The view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as it is plain to see. I'm living my bucolic life.
Hello and welcome back. So this is going to be a pants video, and what I'm going to be doing is walking you through making a basic pant, figuring out how to adjust it for your body, and then having that information so you can use it for other pants patterns. For my own use in general, I have an idea of what I need to do to adjust a standard big 4, big 5 pattern to fit my body, but I'm going to pretend I don't know any of that and just walk you through. I am going to be using the pants pattern in this pattern, okay? And the reason I chose it is a very classic, somewhat smooth, you know, not a whole lot of ease worked into it type pattern. It has a simple dart in the front and a dart in the back with a back zipper. So it's pretty much as close to a stylized sloper, I would call it, as I'm going to get in what I have in my pattern catalog books over here. So the idea of pants fitting can be really, really intimidating, and that's, you know, partially because the pattern companies like it that way, in my opinion. Just to let you know, I have been trying for the last couple months to get the measurements that the pattern companies make their patterns off of, so I can have that as a guide for doing an expanded fitting series on it. And I've been told, I got an email last week, the final one, been going back and forth, that they've decided it's proprietary information, it's not going to come out to the masses, so we're out of luck. So I'm going to go back, fit a pair of pants, talk about body shapes and everything, and we're just going to go from there. And the other thing I really want to talk about is size numbers, measurement numbers. Try as best you can to take any positive or negative, you know, valuations on numbers away. Numbers are just numbers. They're landmarks for us to use so that we can get things to fit, you know. If you see a measurement that looks bigger than what you think it should be or what you consider appropriate, put that away. You know, if you see a size that looks bigger than what you think you should be, don't worry about it. You know, it's just a number. And we're just going to move forward, because that's a huge thing to get over, because a lot of times in order to get pants to fit, you actually are going to have to go up a size to start with before you can taper everything in, which is what I'm doing. Because what I would suggest is you choose your pattern, you know, your big 4, big 5, whatever they are pattern, off of your hip measurement just to start with, because you have to start somewhere, okay? And so because of that, usually I use a pattern size 18 for my hips, especially if it's form fitting, okay? If I go strictly off of what the pattern recommendations are for my hip size, which is 44, you know, it is what it is, then they say I should start with a size 20. So that's what I'm going to do this time. But understand that once you have a grasp of how your body fits in a particular style, and I think that this is going to be a good style to start with, you can use that information you know, to adjust future pants patterns. So I'm going to cut out my size 20. But before I do that, I'm going to tip the camera down. We're just going to have a brief little conversation about pant shapes and sizing and crotch length and all of that stuff. Hello. I just wanted to throw a few comments in here before we get started. I was working on editing this video, and I wanted to clarify a couple things. First of all, I am intending this video to be helpful for people who have either had such a bad experience in the past making pants that they don't even want to try it again, or people who have been too afraid to go there in the first place, okay? I think I mentioned in the video, there are thousands of ways to edit pants patterns, and you can go off the deep end into the nuances, how to curve a dart or how to affect a certain angle and all kinds of things. And that's not really what I was hoping for this video. For this video, I'm just trying to get a basic pant pattern that you can do on your own, by yourself, relatively quickly and painlessly, just so you can have a functional pattern to start with, okay? And then from there, once you have that functional pattern, then if you want to, you can go off into those rabbit holes of all of the little nuances of pants pattern fitting, okay? But sometimes you just need a little bit of a help or a little bit of a jump start just to be going in the right direction. So that's what I was trying to do. And I just thought while I was editing this, you know what, I want to make that a little bit clearer in the beginning so that people don't get, you know, a little bit too hyper, you know, going, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? We're just trying to make this as painless and fast as possible. So hope you like the video, and I will let you get back to it. Okay, so first of all, in the back of pattern books, they have this diagram. I know it's the same in Simplicity and McCall's. It's probably the same in the other books too. They're all owned by the same company. And one of the very first things you need to do is accurately measure your body. So like they have them models in bodysuits here. I have this lovely book. I love this book because she shows real body shape people. They're in a bodysuit or your underwear or something. Measure yourself without a lot of garments on, okay? So that's the first thing, is just to get yourself an accurate measurement. And it's going to be difficult to get everything, but if you can at least get your waist and remember on yourself where you're comfortable. Some people like their waist higher, some people like their waist lower. Some people's natural waist is actually centered where you would think it should be, but they like to wear their pants lower or higher. Figure all of that out. Analyze your own self, you know. So you need to get a waist measurement. You're going to need to get a fullest part of the hip measurement, which can be debatable sometimes, not going to lie. Because, you know, if you have a body that's very round, in general, they are going to want your fullest part of the hip to be about 9 inches below your waist. And they're assuming you're 5'7". Now, that could be different for everybody. So pay attention to where your fullest part is, which is not as, you know, extreme or important at this point. Just, you know, measure where your fullest part is. It might be way down here, it might be up here, you know. But that is the measurement that I'm going to choose my pattern off of. Now, if you understand that they're basing it on a model who is 5'7". If you're 5'2", you're not just going to need to shorten the length down here. You're also going to need to deal with this because in general, you know, everybody's different, but in general, this distance is going to be shorter too because you're shortening the entire body shape, you know. In general, everybody is different. Some people have a long torso and short legs. Some people have a short torso and long legs. It's just all different. So get to know your own body is the first thing. Okay. The pattern I'm going to be cutting out, like I said, is a very slim fitting but classic pattern. The way that I'm going to be doing it is I'm going to be using just a cotton woven fabric, you know, kind of like a muslin. Consider it a muslin that we're making up here. And when I sew it and try it on, I'm going to be trying it on with the seam allowances on the outside. So basically wearing it inside out, because that's going to really help figure out where everything is. And one last thing before I start cutting things out. This is my flexible curve ruler, you know, very handy. But I just put a little piece of tape here, which is, I'm going to call that where my inseam is. If this is a crotch, pretend this is the crotch seam right here. So it's a side view of someone. If you can tell, one side, this is not dead center. If I line both of these up, you know, assuming that the waistline is flat, and that's not always the case. Sometimes the waistline is lower in the front than the back. But assuming it's flat, this is going to be further towards the front. Okay, this is what the shape that they're basing their patterns off of. What if you have a really flat derriere, so you don't need that much space to get to your waistline, but you got a little bit of a tummy? Well, all of a sudden, the crotch seam line might technically fit, but everything is like tipped forward, okay? And so at that point, technically what you would need to do is add length to the front, subtract length off the back, and things like that. And we'll deal with that. But I just wanted to let you know that's what you're dealing with, and that's why I'm choosing to start at the hip level. Because at the hip level, you're going to have a closer approximation to your body shape, where all of this kind of stuff is going on, than at your waist, at least in my opinion. You know, and there's thousands of opinions on how to fit patterns. Just letting you know, if this doesn't work for you, fine, try something else. Keep trying something until you find something that works for you. So let me show you. This is the pattern I'm using. There's only two pieces. There is a back with a dart and a front with a dart. I'm going to cut both of these out of a cotton woven, like I told you, and then we're going to come back here and get some measurements off of it. Okay, I want to show you one thing. This is my pants front piece, and up here it says that this is 1 inch below the waist. Okay, I want, for purposes of fitting, I want this to come all the way up to the waist. So what I'm going to do, my size is 20, which is this dotted line right here. So what I'm going to do is just extend that up. I can find my pen here. Extend that up 1 inch so that technically the edge of my cut piece for fitting purposes should be right at my waistline, if all goes well, you know. So I'm just going to extend it up here also, and then kind of connect to the dot, but understanding that there is a dart that's going to be going on in there. If I put my ruler so that my ruler continues along this edge at 1 inch, right here, tip it up for the dart, oops, tip it back down at that dart, and then continue straight. That should work, okay? So I'm going to need to do that for the back side also. The other thing is down at the bottom, these are made with a 1 1/4 inch hem. I don't want any hem on my one that I'm using just for fitting, so I'm going to actually draw a line where that 1 1/4 level is and just cut it straight off, because I want to be able to see where, if everything was hemmed, exactly where that length is going to be hitting really easily. So the next step is we're going to stitch these together using long basting stitches. And I know that the pattern is made to zip up the back, but dealing with a back opening while you're fitting yourself is difficult. And a lot of pants fitting instructionals kind of assume that you have someone standing behind you who's willing to measure your every little move. And if you're like me, you are alone in your sewing room, so that's not an option. So what I'm going to do is on one side, I'm going to leave an opening on the back piece, I know this is upside down, but on the back piece, you're going to see this line here that says crotch line, okay? I'm going to leave it open from this crotch line all the way up. I should, whoopsie, sorry about that. That should give plenty of room to be able to get in and out of it. Not making the darts right now. I'm going to go ahead and actually punch out the dots for these, and I'm going to transfer over a mark for the darts, and I'm going to also transfer over the grain line because I want to be able to see when I have it on that this grain line is laying in the direction it needs to. So give me a minute. I'm going to punch out all of the little dots for my appropriate size and draw those in, but I am not going to fold them yet. And because I am transferring over the grain line, I'm just going to punch out a circle at the top of my grain line. And if you've never seen me work before, I use a little leather hole punch, a thick piece of leather, sandwich my tissue paper between them and punch out those circles. Makes life easier. So anyway, I'm punching out the top of the grain line mark and a point about halfway down, and then another point at the very bottom. That's just because that way my ruler, I know you can't see this, but that way my ruler can travel the whole distance. Now I want to mention one other thing while we're looking at piece number 12, which is the back piece. I know it's upside down. Well, you know what, I'm going to flip it over. The line right here, it's a double line, and it says lengthen and shorten here, okay? That should be at what they are considering their hip line, and that should be about 9 inches from the waist. The ruler's upside down. So yeah, 9 inches is right here. So this is what is their determining factor here, okay? So just eyeballing that. If your waist is a whole lot shorter or a whole lot longer, just kind of be aware of that because there's going to be a lengthening and shortening in this area, okay? Anyhow, let me go ahead and get these marked. So I have my little dots there for my dart, and I'm marking it mostly so I can see where the original dart is, because there's a good chance that I'm going to be moving it. But if I can see where the original is, I can know how I need to adjust patterns in general from what they are to fit me, if that makes any sense. So then down here, here's one of my grain line dots and another one. Don't know why I'm being like that. I'm putting a big arrow on it up and down so that it's obvious to me that that is the grain line, okay? Okay, so I have my microphone turned off, so I'm going to try to do a voiceover for this part. What I'm showing you is that the bullseye that is marked here is just below a double line, which says lengthen and shorten here, which is that lower hip line. And there are sizes indicated at that point and the width of the finished garment at those sizes at that point. And the bullseye is about 1 inch below the widest point of the hip. It's kind of at the spot where if you lift your leg, you lift your knee, there's going to be a crease there where you lift your knee. It's at that point, okay? Now, the industry standard for a comfortable pant that is not snug and not loose, just right, you know, the Goldilocks pants, is to have 3 inches of ease at that hip level. And I can tell that they are using that for this pattern because they are indicating a body size hip of 44 inches and they have a finished width hip of 47.5. So, you know, it's right about at the 3-inch point. So that's good. Okay, so at this point, what I need to have you do is sew the pants together. And we're going to sew them so that it is unmarked sides together, so that I have right now one piece that has the marked side down. And I'm going to get my second piece, if that's the front there, I'm going to put the back on top of it with the marked side up, because I want those sides to be exposed. And I'm just going to sew the side seams, or I'm sorry, the inseam and the side seam at a 5/8 inch seam allowance, you're going to use a long stitch, like a gathering stitch, a basting stitch on your machine all the way down. Now remember, on one side, you choose which side, you need to leave it open from that widest point of the hip all the way up to the waistline, just so you can get in. So just pick a side for that. Now, at this point, I'm showing that one side is open, like I said, okay? And the other pant leg is sewn all the way up. I'm showing you that I have the back side marked with the word back, just so you can tell which is which easily. Now, something I want to do different is at the fullest point of the hip, take a ruler, and I'm lining up my ruler so that the stitching line is 5/8 of an inch from the edge. I want to put a line 3/4 of an inch from that stitching line at the widest point of the hip, okay? So I'm drawing it right there. I need to draw it on both sides, the front and the back of both of the legs. It's going to help us out when we're doing our fitting. So to put your two pant legs together, take one, doesn't matter which one, and turn it right side out, okay? And you're going to have the other one inside out. So here's this one that looks like it is right side out, and I am going to stick it inside of the one that is the opposite way, okay? So that we can match up technically the right sides of that inner seam together, all right? And I keep getting it confused because inside is outside on this particular pants because of the way we're doing the seam allowance. So just bear with me here. I'm just going to push the seam allowances one way or the other way just because of the garment that we're doing. I want to keep them together in case there's anything that I need to change in that inseam. So I'm matching up the top edge, the crotch line, bottom inseam area here and all the way up. And we're going to stitch this entire thing again with a very long stitch, like a basting stitch, at a 5/8 inch seam allowance. So I just realized that my volume on my microphone was turned off for a while. So let me just give you a recap of where we are. I have my pants basically sewed together at this point. I am pulling it out here, so I have all of, this is how I want you to try it on, with all of your seam allowances exposed, okay? I'm not actually clipping anything yet. I probably could, but I'm going to hold off for just a bit. And what I'm going to do is go put a pair of leggings on. I want something that has a center seam and side seams, okay? So pantyhose won't really work because they're compression and they don't really have a side seam. So I'm thinking like heavy tights or leggings or something would be a good thing. That's what I'm going to do, and a little t-shirt so that we can figure this out. In case it wasn't clear from before, having this mark here at 3/4 of an inch in from your stitching line, which is a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, is going to be important when we first try it on, because if our garment has 3 inches of ease, by pinning it at this position, it should fit snugly. That should fit just about exact around our hips with it pinned like this. And so we're going to do that when we try it on. Give me a second. I'm going to run downstairs, get changed, and I'll be right back. Okay. Where's my little thing? Here it is. So just understand this is for the sake of the greater good and definitely not my best look here, okay? Let me tip the camera down a little bit more so hopefully you can see what I'm dealing with here. First of all, got my leggings on, you know, it is what it is. I have a little piece of elastic here and I'm putting it where I feel comfortable with my waistline being, okay? That feels good to me, and that's going to be my anchor point, all right? Now, just looking at me, you know, you can see I got tummy, I got a rear that used to be perkier, but now not so much. You know, it's life, it's okay. We're just trying to create basically a skin, a sculpture to go around a three-dimensional object that we are in motion, so that makes it a little more tricky. So this is what I'm dealing with here, okay? Let me go ahead and get my pants, and I'm gonna pull that over my leggings and my t-shirt, and that's actually going to give me something that I can pin my pants to. Okay, so right now what I'm doing is finding my center front here. Remember, I have my elastic where my waistline is, and the very cut edge of this pant should match up to where that waistline is, and miraculously at this point it does. So what I'm going to do is take a straight pin and pin these pants to my leggings underneath there, so it's going to want to stay put right there. Okay, remember this side is open. I'm just going to pin it at approximately 5/8 of an inch, you know, one up here at the top and one about midway, just to hold it for right now. Okay, then at the very back, remember we're doing this so that you can do it when you're by yourself at home. The back cut edge should come up to where your elastic is for your waist. And does it? Well, not quite. Look, it's about an inch too short, all right? So that's my first note to myself, is that I need to, that the front was okay, but I need to lengthen my back by whatever this distance is. So let me get a ruler so I can show you how I'm going to measure myself. Okay, so I am actually looking into a mirror right now. And with the top of my ruler here at the elastic, I can see where the cut edge is. And that looks to me about 1.25 inches too short, okay? So I have a little handy dandy notebook here and just a very abstract drawing of a pants front and a pants back. So up here at the top, I am adding 1 1/4 inches. Okay, I'm just going to make a little note that I need to add in this area up here plus 1 1/4 inches. Okay, and we're just going to leave that for right now. All good. And I'm going to pin my center back where it is. Okay, so wherever it's holding out here, that's where it is, and I'm going to make sure that it's actually lining up with the center back seam of everything underneath it. I think that I'm pinning that correctly. Okay, so now remember this mark here at 3/4 inch on the side. What I want to do is pinch that and put a pin at that 3/4 inch mark. And we're just going to see how accurate everything is as far as the side. When I do this, it should be just about exactly at my circumference. It feels tight to me. It feels tight, but it might be because I have the thick leggings underneath it. Let me see here. Putting a pin on this side. Okay. Well, all right. If this is up and this is pinned right there, what I see is that I have little lines going on here. And if you remember, before I put my pants on, where my body does is it comes to a point here, and then it has like second hips. You know, I go boop, and then boop again. And this point here, when this is tight, it's accentuating my second hips, I would say. So let me move this out. Well, first I'm going to take it out altogether, okay? If I take it out all together and my top is where it needs to be here, okay, is that laying correctly? Yes, yes it is. So what that is telling me is that if I'm going to take it in till it's nice and tight against my body, but not the 3/4 inch, where do I go? and I'm going about half that distance, okay? So basically at this level, instead of the 3 inches of ease, which is the industry standard that I should have, my voluptuous hips are only giving me about half that much. So I want to make sure that this side seam is able to go straight down also. So if I'm going to add, see, drop my pen. If I'm going to add width to my thigh area, okay, just ignore this for right now because I have to deal with this. I want to, if I'm going to add width to my thigh area, I want to make sure that if I do it, it's going to stay straight up and down. So if I pinch this at 3/4 inch right now, okay, is that still halfway? Well, to me that actually looks towards the front just a little bit, okay? And so to me, that means that in a really weird state of things, at my rear end, yes, I'm fuller back there, but when you hit thigh level, I have more up here in the front. So, okay, I tried to do this standing up and it was a joke. So, what I want to do is I want to add some width at that point of my second hip. You know, this is my first hip and second hip down here. I need to add a little bit more to the front than to the back, okay? So, what I'm going to do is add, we're going to add 3/8 of an inch to the front piece at this level, you know, which is just below where the crotch line is. I'm going to make sure I have it added 3/8 of an inch there, ease it into the top, ease it into the leg by the knee, okay? That's on the front. On the back, I'm going to add 1/4 inch. It's only a little bit different, but it's enough that I think it's going to make that area of my legs a little bit more comfortable. So with that done, let's go back to the front and back darts. Okay, so at this point, my side seams are pinned to my pants, or at least this side is. I need to pin this side seam to my pants over here. Okay, without stabbing myself. All right, so we've got these darts marked. And at this point, don't worry too much about matching that dart exactly, okay? But what I want you to do, hang on, let me make sure this is actually pinned to my clothes over here, is from the very center, smooth it out until you get to about where the center of this dart is. And then from the side seam, just smooth it out. We're not pulling it tight, we're just smoothing it out until we get to this point, all right? What do you have right here? Go ahead and pin what you have. It might be bigger, might be smaller, you never know. Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here, smoothing it from the sides until I get to that general location where the dart is, smoothing it in. I will deal with the bottom point of it later, okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and pin this amount right here. All right, now take a look at where the bottom of the darts are. And look at where the fullest part of your belly is, all right? You don't want the darts to end below where your fullest part is. So if I turn this way, my fullest part of my belly is right about here, which is right at where those darts are. I actually need those darts to end about 1 inch above that, okay? So I'm going to just draw a line with my pencil about 1 inch above where the bottom of those darts are, so that when I remark the amount to take in at the darts, I also know where to end it, so that it fits with the curvature of my body. On my back, make sure your back, center back is pinned, okay? Remember, I am going to be adding some up here, but I'm going to do the same thing where this is where my dart is marked, but I'm just going to kind of smooth it and see what actually I need taken in, okay? And then I'm going to pin that on one side, and I pin both sides. And sometimes doing it behind your back, it's hard to be completely accurate, but I find that if I do both of them, I can average it out, and it usually gets pretty close. So now on this side also, I'm just going to smooth it over until I have a dart or an amount that I need to take in at the top of my dart. Trying to not get my t-shirt caught in there. Okay, so now I'm getting this dart pinned. And again, at this point, just leaving it pinned in like that, take a look at your rear. Where is the furthest point out in your rear? Okay, so when your rear is shaped like this, where is that furthest point? And for me, it looks like it's right about here, okay? So I want my dart to end above that, and it does. If you are shortening this a whole lot, you may need to shorten your darts. Now, the hard part is you need to kind of figure out where is the furthest point of your rear this way also. And without looking straight down on it, that can be tricky, but I'm just going to guess right about here. And if I look, this point here is fairly close to being in line with that dart. So I'm going to say this placement is okay. All right. So at this point, what I need to do to these pants is I need to add length to the back. I need to add a little bit to my lower area here. So, and I'll show you that on my pattern. And I need to adjust my darts to the actual amount I have taken in. Now, at this point, right here around my waist, it feels like I have more than a 1/2 inch ease, okay? So just to figure out what more I need, this side seam that I just have pinned together here, I'm gonna open that up and do the Special K pinch, okay? And I think that that feels pretty snug. So I'm going to go ahead and put a big pencil mark at the tips of my fingers, okay? And the difference between this pencil mark and my 5/8 inch seam allowance, the difference in that times 2 is what I'll need to adjust my waist at. So let me take this off, get comfortable again, and I'll show you how I'm going to deal with all of this. So for my body back here at the table, the first thing we're going to deal with is if your waistline needs to be lengthened. All right, if yours was like mine on the back where my top cut edge was too short to match my waistline, I need to lengthen that. Okay, my battery went dead again. Having trouble with batteries. I think I need to buy some new ones. But if we're going to deal with the lengthening and shortening of the difference between your crotch and your waistline first. So if you were like me and on your back was too short, you're going to need to lengthen that now. And remember when I was eyeballing it, I said that, well, if I add 1.25 inches, that's going to fit. So I'm cutting along this lengthen and shorten here mark, and I'm going to take a scrap of tissue paper and tape the bottom to it down here. Okay, and then I'm going to line this cut edge up with one of the lines on my grid. Oops, tie that off behind it, okay? Like so. Put a weight on that, and then I need to line up this line here 1.25 inches above it. So I am frantically looking for my ruler. Here it is. And I'm going to add 1.25 inches to it right here, okay? So that the side seams are gonna blend together. And that looks about right. Now, what if yours was too tall? Well, at the same point, at this point here, instead of spreading it out, you're gonna condense it. So say you had it 1/2 inch too tall, okay? What you're gonna need to do is overlap it by 1/4 inch, because 1/4 inch plus 1/4 inch is 1/2 inch, okay? If it was too tall by 1 inch, you overlap it by 1/2 inch, okay? What if your center back was too short, but your side seam was okay? That's actually closer to what I had going on. So what I'm going to do is keep this point at my side seam where it is. It's okay there. And I'm going to rotate this up so that at this point over here in my center back, I have the added 1.25 inches. Okay? So if you had to add length to both your front and your back, I would say just move it straight up. But if you're like me, I'm angling it. And usually I make a smaller size, but I raise up both of them. In this one, I'm using a larger size and only raising up the back. It's kind of like that deal where they're always talking about, you know, you need to go find your true bra size. You're not a 38C or a 36 double D and all of those kinds of things, you know. It's kind of like that, figuring out exactly where the addition should be. So this is how I'm dealing with my front. Now, what if your side seam was okay, but your center back was way too long? It would be the same thing where this stays the same, but then this overlaps over here. Okay, so that's the first step, is figuring out what needs to be added or subtracted up here to get it to match your waistline. Okay, I've been trying to figure out how to explain what I'm doing on these darts because it gets a little confusing and math-ish. And basically, if you have your dart pinned where it's going to work for you, and you can measure up here 5/8 of an inch in, you know, from our cut edge, which is higher than theirs, but it's up here. And you can measure that, and I can see that at that point, I have a 3/4 inch distance, and it's about the same on the other side, okay? I'm just gonna go ahead and fold with my new bottom dot, okay, because I did have to raise my bottom dot, and fold this and see, okay, let's see, move you over here. If this is folded, so my new bottom dot is 1 inch higher, which is what I needed, okay? And I extend this line all the way up here. At about 5/8 of an inch in, how much room do I have? Well, I have 3/4 of an inch, so it's about the same. I would say, unless you are dealing with more than 1/8 of an inch on each dart, don't worry about adjusting them, okay? It's not worth it to do any fraction that's smaller than 1/8 of an inch at all. And if you need to take something in more or less than that, you can always pinch the side seam. Now, talking about the side seam, remember when I was deciding just before I took it off that it felt a little bit loose, and so I just took it up to where it felt comfortable. Not super snug, you know, but to the point where I would be comfortable having a waistband. And I made this pencil mark right here. So if I put my ruler at that pencil mark, okay, which is right here, and I put a mark on my fabric at 5/8 of an inch, which is right here. The difference between the side seam that I pinched in and my 5/8 inch side seam was 1 inch on one side. I got to double that because it's, you know, on both sides. So that means I need to take 2 inches out of my waistline, okay? There's side seams and center seams where I'm going to do that. So I have 4 intersections, you know, 2 sides and a front and a back. And there are 2 pieces of fabric at each intersection. So I have 8 places where I can take that in. All right, so I have 2 inches divided by 8 pieces of fabric is 1/4 inch, okay? 2 divided by 8 is 1/4. And we're dealing with inches here, so what that means is I am going to take up at the waist level 1/4 inch on all of those places. So here at my center back, I'm going to make a mark up here at 1/4 inch, and I'm going to taper it and smooth it down here, okay? That's going to be my new cutting line here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, okay? At my center back, this is kind of messed up right there, just ignore that. I'm starting it 1/4 inch in up here, and I'm just going to smooth it in actually rather quickly on the side here. Okay, you want it to be smoothed in, nothing really abrupt, but I need to make sure I have room for my hips, so I'm going to try to smooth it in before I get to my hips. Now on the front, this is my back piece. I'm going to match the side seam, what I did on the side seam of my back. I'm going to match it up and do the same thing on this front so that they're going to match. Okay? And then on the center front, I'm going to do what I did in the center back, where I put a little mark up here at 1/4 inch and just move my ruler over so I can get a nice straight line coming down that way. So in that way, I have taken in all of that difference. So let me go ahead and trim my pattern there. So at this point, what have we done? I have dealt with my crotch length. I have dealt with my dart length. I've dealt with my dart width. Okay? What I have not dealt with yet is that extra little width I need down here where my, little second hip is. I should figure out the technical term for that. It's like a hip bump, second hip, whatever. So let me get this trimmed and then we'll deal with that down there. Now, what if you have very thin legs and you feel like you have way too much fabric down there? Well, you're going to need to take it in. Just like I need to add it, you're going to need to take it in. But here's the thing. Figure out what style of pants works better for you. And in general, if you have seen me, you know that I don't like to wear form-fitting pants. And I know that it's just because of this thing, this level right here, where they don't fit my thighs correctly. And having to add just has always just irritated me for some reason. I don't know why. It's not a big deal. So in general, I tend to make pants with loose fitting legs. And because of that, because usually the patterns I make for pants have loose, wider legs, I don't need to worry about adding any extra here because that's kind of worked into it, So just, be aware different styles of pants work for different people differently. So at this point, it's right about here. It's right below that crotch level. That's where I needed to add a little bit more. And so if I lay this on my table so that the grade of grain is on the chart, this is on the chart, I can see that at this point, it's at its widest and then it tapers down. In order to make this fit my leg and have a straight leg and everything like that, I'm going to put a couple pattern weights on there, grab a scrap of tissue paper from my trash can. I'm trying to find a piece without a lot of stuff on it. Now I have my pant piece, and it's down here just below crotch level that I need to add. And what did I say I needed to add? I needed to add 3/8 of an inch to the front and 1/4 inch to the back. So this is my front, and what I do for the front, you'll understand what to do for the back. I'm just gonna put my little piece of tissue paper down here. And basically for me, what I need is this fullest part out here, I need it to continue at that same fullest part until I get past this point. Okay, because I don't want my pants to go like that. I just want it to come that, you know, come out here, and where it is here, just continue straight and then taper in. So what I'm going to do is try to get my table organized here. Get my little piece of tissue paper, put it here, and I'm going to tape it on so that I have tissue paper up at the point where my pattern is at its fullest, and then down probably close to knee level, because I want to have plenty of room to blend it back down, because I don't want it to go like this and then go in abruptly, because that's not going to be pretty. Okay, so let me move this up a bit, and I'm going to grab my flexible ruler, because this might be a fun time to use it. If you have a French curve or some kind of a ruler like that, that would be good too. Okay, so coming straight across here at this point, I'm going to keep this in the same line, and that is right about here, which is about 3/8 of an inch. Well, it's exactly 3/8 of an inch, okay? So if I continue this part straight to that part, that's the key point for me, is right here. And then I'm going to gently curve it in all the way down to my knee. Well, I just went over my fingers, so it wasn't quite clear. But at this point, I can kind of eyeball that, all right? And so when I come back with my scissors, when I'm cutting this out, I'm just going to continue cutting straight. I need to add one more piece of tape here because it's moving on me. Okay, I just need to continue cutting straight and then gently curve. Okay, until I'm blended back into the other cutting line at about the knee level. Okay, and that looks actually like it's a little too abrupt right there, so I'm going to trim some of it off. All right, so this is it right now. Now, I'm going to do the same thing to the back. I had said before that my back only needed about 1/4 inch, so if I need to trim it a little bit less in the back, that's fine, but I'm going to be putting a piece of paper here and guiding it in about the same way. The very last thing is going to be the leg length, which is the easiest of all, and that is, especially on these pants, because they are tapered at the bottom, instead of just cutting them off at the bottom, which will affect the width, your pant width, and you won't have this little extra part down here where it flares out so it hems easily. You're going to want to do the lengthening and shortening at this point. So if I need to, say, shorten my pants by 1 inch, you're going to want to have a fold that's half of that. Okay, that's 1/2 inch. Now on the back of the pattern envelope, they should have the length. Do they have length? I don't think they have the finished leg length. They have the leg width. Let me take a peek and see if it's on here. If not, I will have to try it on again, which I really don't want to do. They don't have the finished leg length. Well, I know in general, I have to shorten my pants by a couple inches. For the sake of this one, when I make up my pants, I'm just going to I'm going to cut it out the full length, and then we'll just figure it out from there. Now, here's the other thing. At this point, you pretty much have a sloper, a piece that's going to fit you. When I actually go to make up this pattern, I'm going to cut it off right here because then there's a facing that goes on and I want to use theirs. I needed to add this extra length on the top just to see how it was going to fit my waistline, not necessarily their facing, okay? So what I would do, and what I'm going to do, is make a little cheat sheet. I got so many things here of everything you have to do for these pants, okay? So I'm going to put pants. The first thing is size 20, okay? That cringes me to do that, but it is what it is. Then I'm going to say that I need to add 1 1/4 inches. I can't even write and talk at the same time. To center back. Okay. I'm going to make sure that I shorten front darts 1 inch. I'm going to say on fitted pants, add 3/8 inch front and back side seam at crotch level. Okay, that's going to be my cheat sheet for making pant patterns, so that then if I need to grab another pattern that is a pant pattern, I have something to go on. For just about everything, I'm going to need to add to the center back, okay? What if they have pleats instead of darts? You know, you might need to just figure out how that's going to work. Oh, and the other thing was the waist level. I have to take in 1/4 inch at side seam, and front and back center seam, waist level. Okay, so that is 4 specific things I need to do to make a pants pattern fit me after I've already picked one out that technically should based on the pattern instructions. Okay, so I hope that helped. There's just a whole lot to pants because you've got a lot of moving parts and you've got a lot of different things. You've got 2 thighs that may or may not be the same size, that may or may not be a standard length. You know, you've got hips, and like you saw on mine, you have your hips and you have another spot that's like second hips that are equally as wide but lower. You may have a little more fluff up near your waistline so that it doesn't taper in like the Barbie doll does, but more like that, you know? You may have a waistline and a hip line that are very, very similar in measurements, so that those darts don't even need to be there, so that it's almost perfectly straight. You know, you may be able to omit your front darts entirely and just put some tiny ones in the back. You never know, but you kind of have to walk through the entire process, you know, in the privacy of your own home where no one is there to judge you and you are definitely not judging yourself, and work it out. So what I'm going to do is next time on my next video, I have some really nice wool fabric and I'm going to make these pants up as the pattern calls, you know, with the side seam, with the facing and everything. And we're just going to see how they turn out. So I hope this was helpful. I know that it's a little different, but sometimes you need to go through all of these steps before you can get to your final product. So hope you liked it and I'll see you next time.
My bucolic life, healthy city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and sew and spin, and move the horses into the barn. Then time to move them out again. Red barns, green pastures, beautiful white houses. The view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as Yes, it is plain to see I'm living my bucolic life.